Hey everyone, I'm Brianna,
I'm Melissa.
I'm Naya.
I'm Nava.
and this is the Girls in Action podcast. Today we're going to be talking about some amazing, powerful, brilliant women in history that you probably didn't learn about in history class. These are just a few of the many brilliant women who are doing brilliant things, but if y'all have any other women you think should be uplifted, comment their names on our Instagram and we'll be sure to make a story highlight about them. And as always, when we say women, this includes anyone who is self-identifying or non-binary, so go ahead and give them a shout out and we'll lift them up on our Instagram. So the first woman we're going to be talking about today, her name is Jewel Plummer Cobb. She did research in the STEM field. She studied skin cancer. But one of the main things she did in her career is advocated for diversity and representation in STEM fields for people of color and women. She was a woman of color herself. And she held many administrative positions at multiple universities. So she was already defying the standards. She was the president of CSU Fullerton, where she did work creating pre-medical and pre-dental programs for minorities and women in science. And she won the Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Academy of Sciences. So the reason I included this woman, I want to go into STEM, but as most of us probably know, STEM is a field in which women are severely underrepresented. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the barriers that prevent women from being represented or participating in STEM careers. So a big piece of that are gender stereotypes that are, enforced from a young age. Girls are convinced that boys are inherently better at math and science, and this is a claim which there's no biological basis for.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that intro, Brianna. Just to add on to that, I found this article with 5 reasons of why women are so underrepresented in the STEM field. And the first one is double competence, which means that women have a greater pressure to prove their professional worth, repeatedly because there's just not enough equity in the career yet. And then the second one is misunderstood motherhood, which means that women have to choose between taking care of their children when they're older or still working and furthering their career. And then the third reason why is lack of mentorship. And I feel a lot, even in the Bay Area, there can still be lack of mentorship with women in STEM. And also it's just sometimes women being in STEM are looked down upon for whatever reason. And it's sometimes a boys club. And that brings me to the fourth point, which is stereotype threat and implicit bias from men towards women. And they think that women are lesser and they don't know enough about science and they shouldn't be in the career. And then the final one that I found, it just annoyed me with all these reasons. But the last one was income inequity, which means that women earn, a study from Canada said that women were earning 16% less on average for their paychecks. And I just found that really appalling. But yeah, all those facts were just a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually learned that for every dollar earned by a man, women in STEM earn 0.86 cents, and which is really surprising to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that pay gap actually ends up, discouraging women from continuing to pursue careers in STEM, which is disappointing. But you get a career in STEM, and then if you're unable to move up in that position and you're unable to make as much money as your male counterparts, that can be frustrating. But yeah, this is really interesting to me, specifically in healthcare. 80% of healthcare workers are women, but only 21% of health executives and board members are women, which is insane. But a lot of it has to do with workplace discrimination and discouragement. But it's also, barriers put up from a young age and stereotypes that start in, elementary school. It's crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing is that women sometimes have lower confidence when it comes to these kinds of jobs because it's always centralized that boys and men are going to are supposed to step up and take over these jobs, but it really doesn't make a difference if a female does it or if a male does it. So we should really be providing more mentorship opportunities for women who want to go into STEM so that they can see that there's really no rule that just states men are the only ones who can be in STEM. It's inclusive, and women should be able to explore their passions as well.
Totally, and I think you made a good point saying that we need to give women the opportunities to be able to, venture into these fields and learn about these fields, because if we don't give them those opportunities, those educational opportunities, how are they going to be able to be better represented, So equalizing the opportunities will then equalize the representation.
I still feel that there's so many women in so many intersections that really need some more representation. It sucks. And especially like one field of STEM in which women are particularly underrepresented is psychology. And so this is kind of like my segment because I want to go in and study psychology or neuroscience. So someone who you might have not heard of in history class is Mary Whiton Calkins. So Mary Whiton Calkins. So she was actually the 14th president of the American Psychological Association and the very first women president. And so she actually started her career at Wesley College, and she also studied philosophy, but she went to Harvard for her graduate program and completed all of the coursework, and she was ready to graduate. And she actually made her dissertation, which means like it's a senior thesis, with this really famous psychologist, William James. And Harvard rejected and denied her application to have her senior thesis be approved just because of her gender. And that I found that was insane. And so also posthumously, or after she passed away, Harvard still wouldn't allow her to get a doctorate degree. But aside from that, she kept on going on, and she also published 4 books and 100 papers in her career, regardless of that Harvard mishap. And she was also a really big supporter of the suffragist movement. And she was actually one of the founding members of the ACLU. So also something that I found was really interesting in regards to like women's rights and activism, she like declined this offer, this PhD offer from this university called Radcliffe College, because Radcliffe College was a women's university, and she said that she didn't want to go and be submissive there. Like she wanted to keep on fighting and go to Harvard, even though that Harvard really looked down upon her gender. But yeah, I thought it was like really amazing how she like kind of transformed like the career of psychology and just paved the way like for women. Like she just didn't really care about what the others would say about her gender. And so this kind of like leads me to this like broader topic that I want to talk about with the entire group, and just like how and why are women still considered unable to be intellectual? Why are they still underestimated? And just like why did it take so long for educational equity for women? Like why did that take so long to like happen and kind of like be normalized? Like I really want to know all of your thoughts. It's a lot because I don't know why we had it so hard back in the day, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. I want to say, obviously we've made a bunch of progress and women are now allowed to go to school and there's mandated education for everybody. But there are still a lot of those gender stereotypes, those barriers, that pose issues for women looking to pursue education. So I just think it's something that we seriously do need to work on, and we need to continue working on. Um, and many stereotypes from the past have kind of carried into today, like the idea that girls have domestic responsibilities that boys don't have. That often interferes with schoolwork. And then in school, subjects are gendered based off of false assumptions of physical and cognitive differences. Like, for example, the math brain, and that boys are better at math and science, like we were talking about. And it's just, untrue. And it's more a result of society's need to gender these things and make it where men have more opportunities than women. That's why women aren't excelling fields right now, because they aren't given the opportunity to.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I I'm just annoyed that these stereotypes like still go on like today.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking about these lack of women in the spotlight is Payal Kadakia is the founder of ClassPass. So before I start talking about what ClassPass is, let's dive into her background. So Payal studied at MIT, and one day Payal wanted to go to a gym class as she is a dancer. Instead of getting to go to that gym class, she found herself searching online for hours trying to find one. So, out of Pyle's struggle, she decided to create an idea for a business. So, she created a plan to make the search for gym subscriptions and trials easier. Pyle had two previous failures in her business plan, but she persisted. Her final idea was to create a subscription plan for $99 a month where you can try out different gym classes at different gym centers. It takes away the hassle of searching online and paying multiple subscriptions. So this also gives people the flexibility to see where they want to attend gym class and which days. So Pyle's dream came from one of her own experiences. She didn't take the hours of searching as a failure. She turned it into an idea. So today ClassPass is valued at $1 billion. So now that we've heard about Pyle, here's a quick challenge. Try to think of one female CEO that you've heard of or that you know about. I'll give you a moment to do that. So it was probably hard for most of you to come up with one, and that's because we truly spotlight male CEOs, and we really don't know much about these female CEOs. So why is that?
Yeah, I think those are like really interesting and insightful topics because women only compromise like 47% of like the US workforce. And for me, it's just, I only know of like one woman, like female CEO. And to be honest, like I feel like that's really sad because like being a woman myself, like we need to know more and have just increase the voices of like women's female CEOs in the workforce. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah.
totally. And I think it's interesting that, I think a lot of that comes from a lack of representation of women in those fields, and when we don't, and lack of female role models. Um, and it's interesting to me how women are often the subject of advertisements, but rarely are they the directors or the creatives behind them. Or even as Naya was saying, if they are creative directors and they're working to, on the executive side of these advertisements, they're not being recognized for that. So totally underrepresented, totally unspotlighted.
For sure.
I
Definitely.
And
also feel, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, no worries, you go ahead.
And I also feel like stereotypes once again can come into play with female CEOs because like they might think that they're not mentally like capable enough of like running a company or something like that. And I just find that again appalling. But yeah.
Yeah, and what you were saying about Melissa was talking earlier about how women, when they have kids, sometimes they feel like they have to choose between staying home with their kids and continuing to work. And I feel like, especially in the business field, that can be a huge obstacle, and that can prevent you from moving up in your company if you have to take a leave of absence, which just isn't right. You know, women should be able to have both because men are able to have both, and they don't have those same responsibilities when they have kids. So why are limited women limited in that way?
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to learn more about some female CEOs, there's this amazing book called Girls Who Run the World by Diana Kapp, and it has 31 inspirational female CEOs there. So I recommend reading that.
Yeah, and we'll post that on our Instagram as a resource.
Yeah, and progress has there has been progress, but not that much, like barely any. And there was a record of 6% um in 2017 of women CEOs, and that was like that was our highest record. So it's really sad.
That's so sad.
Yeah. But going into how woman power has grown, art has become a better tool for everyone and has become part of women understanding, and it's helped lots of women and actually many. A great example of that is Lorna Simpson, and very few people know about her, which is one thing that I really like about her. She's born in Brooklyn, New York, and is an African American photographer and multimedia artist. She began her career as a documentary photographer with the goal of capturing life as it is. After going to high school, she traveled to Europe and Africa and became interested in changing the way people could experience photographs. She wanted to use photography as a way of understanding the person in the picture instead of just looking at them. In particular, she wanted to create a better understanding of African American women. Lots of Lorna's work focused on experimenting and finding new ways to develop imagery. In the 1980s, Lorna began to add text into her images to add a second layer of meaning. She called this photo text. This brought attention to modern society's relationship with the perception of African American women. Lorna tackled subjects with her art, such as race, gender, and identity. She did this by helping people understand and look at who this person is in this picture and not how they appear to be. Lorna has exhibited her photographs at some of the most respected venues around the world. In 1990, she became the first African American woman to exhibit at the biggest international arts festival, the Venice Biennale. Her work has helped pave the way and create a space in the art world for African American women. And in connecting to that, I would like to give a question to the whole group here, asking how has the portrayal of women in art changed in like history or recently, and how can increasing and uplifting the voices and works of female artists um, and creatives help to reimagine the narrative of women in art?
Well, I think that it has changed definitely a lot, but I do think that there's still like severe underrepresentation of these women, like especially Black women in like art museums and like photography and just like in media in general. And like I just have a couple of facts. Like so the British Museum, the Louvre, and like the Met Museum, um, they have like never had female directors. And I just think like, is that like really change, you know? So yeah, I don't even know if that's like a lot of change.
Yeah, I don't think it has. I will say though, one way that women have been making change in the field of art, I think so often in art and in media, which is, a type of art, women are so often sexualized and objectified and dehumanized in the depictions of them. Um, but I think as women create art and those artistic productions are particularly powerful because think about how underrepresented women are in most other fields of work. So there's a certain power in being able to create that art, and I think especially in recent years, art is and it's continuing to become something that gives women an opportunity to reimagine the narrative surrounding women and gender and sexuality, because in the past it's been so sexualized, so objectifying. So I think art is a really great way to express, creativity, originality, and then reimagining that narrative, as I said.
Yeah, that's super insightful. And I've noticed a lot when I'm seeing older paintings that it's always portraying women as housewives or as maids, and we really shouldn't be placing women in that category of housewives or maids. They have so much potential, and if we let women focus on their potential and do something with that, we can really show how powerful women are. There's no reason to put them down in paintings, especially paintings that are so ancient and historical. Like it's really important for us to display everyone at their best.
Totally. And I think that what you're saying about when art depicts women in those domestic roles, that just continues the gender stereotypes that we've talked about throughout this whole episode that contributes to lack of representation everywhere. So as soon as we can, work to push away these stereotypes and end those stereotypes, that's what's really going to help us move beyond the common understanding of what women do and what they're made for.
Absolutely. I think it all just like roots back to like one thing, which is like stereotypes and just marginalization of these groups. And we have to change that. So,
Yeah, definitely. That's so true. This stereotypes has totally put a block in everything, in like creativity for women and um for art, for pretty much everything.
we just talked about a couple of women who you might not have heard of, and they also paved the way to equity. But here's the thing, we still have a lot of work to do.
We encourage you to look beyond these few women that we've mentioned and be on the lookout for some other female role models of your own in the fields that you're interested in. So do some more research, find some more resources.
If you are interested in researching powerful women in history, you should check out this book called Little Leaders by Vashti Harrison. This book will tell you about bold women in Black history and give you more women to research and learn about.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to today's episode. Make sure to check out our Instagram for infographics and some blog updates coming soon. You can find us on Instagram at girlsinaction.sf. Again, girlsinaction.sf. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.